honored to be asked to do the VP Chinthan Memorial Lecture. I think Shashi presented you a far more brilliantly compelling canvas of civilizational crisis than I proposed, because I'm doing it entirely in the realm of agriculture and agrarian. Yeah, by the way, I agree with everything that was said. And it is actually comes into the agrarian sector as well. But I have to tell you that I'm going to deviate within that sector for the first 10, 15 minutes, because wherever I go, and I've now been I visited all the coastal states in the south and Maharashtra's coast in the west, and everybody is concerned with and demanding to know what's happening to Indian agriculture with the Trump tariffs. Okay? But this people are really worried about it, and you have very good cause to be worried. It's devastating. See, let me explain very quickly that it's now 4 months since Trump announced his tariffs on India after embracing his good friend Narendra Modi. But it is 1 month since he announced the tariffs on the specific sectors that concern us, including, very importantly, Tamil Nadu. So the category C tariffs, which he announced a month ago, it is devastating. Say, I don't know how many hundreds of units of tanneries have closed in Tamil Nadu. Vellore is finished in that respect. So these tanneries, there is no tariff particularly on leather. How is it happening? The shrimp farmers of Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, finished. Then there is the worst affected are about to be the cotton and soybean farmers. Though there is no specific tariff on cotton as an item, what happens is that the tariffs are on the large ages of textiles, garments, apparel. All your leather goods, cotton, soybean, cotton, not soybean. Cotton is the main thing that comes up under textiles and garments. Nobody imports synthetic fabrics from India, right? Nobody would want to. So cotton is the main thing in this textile and garments. The tariff is 50%. The moment the announcement was made, a lot of us who know how the cotton sector works, please know this, that 3/4 of all, more than 2/3, but 3/4, I think, of all farmers' suicides are cotton growers. The maximum number of farmers' suicides in India are cotton growers. Then the second issue is, so when this thing came out, we knew there was going to be trouble. The Kisan Sabha, Ashok Davle and others, brought the leadership of the SKM, the Samyukta Kisan Morcha, to Vidarbha, invited them, and then demanded that I show up because I know a bit about Vidarbha, having covered it for 25 years. So we went there. There were 3-4 meetings in Akola, Amravati, but wherever the meetings were, there were large numbers of farmers, 3,000 to 5,000 farmers. And the impact, first, and what your media don't tell you, is how cowardly and evil has been the response of the government of India to the Trump tariffs. Here are these people talking about India standing up to the USA, India, not buckling down knee. Very quietly, I don't know how many of you are aware of it. Very quietly a month ago, the government of India removed the 11% duties on import of cotton. Cotton duty import now is zero. It's zero. Okay? And when you remove that 11% duty, they have announced that they extended it. First, they removed it for a month, and then they've extended it till December 31st. So, between now and December 31st, no matter how many million quintals of cotton are dumped on us, there is no duty on it. And they announced the withdrawal of the 11%. First of all, cotton duties used to be 0% when the suicides began, because the very selfish man, Sharad Pawar, as agriculture minister, he only cared about sugarcane. He is the sugar lobby. He is the sugar and he is the lobby. So he kept cotton duty imports at zero, while sugar could have up to 90%, protecting his constituency in Western Maharashtra. After many, many struggles, many of us screaming at the top of our voices, agitations, etc., 5% was introduced on cotton. Please understand that much of the cotton crisis and the prices and the reason they're allowing that import is not just because of Trump. It does a great deal for your Mumbai textile lobby. So when global prices are low on cotton, the textile lobby will get cheap cotton by importing. Second, it benefits the United States dramatically. And all this anticipation has crashed the Chicago cotton futures market. Yeah. And at meeting after meeting, I asked the farmers two questions. Of course, the serious political stuff was done by the SKM leadership. I asked the farmers two questions. How many of you, what is the best price you have got? Mind you, this was, when these guys announced the withdrawal of the 11%? 2 weeks before the first harvest. 2 weeks before the first arrivals of cotton in the market, they withdraw the duty. So the damn prices just crashed. Gatanji, Nagpur, every Varda, Yavatmal, the prices crashed. Now, for the first time, we were having a decent MSP, minimum support price, 8,125 rupees per quintal. And 8,100, I asked, wherever we met farmers and from the public platform, I asked, what is the best price you have got on your cotton this season? Because there was already anticipation of coming tariffs. Not one farmer could confirm that he or she had got more than 6,500 rupees per quintal. When at less than 6,500 rupees, if you are getting, you are already getting a price below your cost of production. You're already at below your cost of production. Now when the stuff comes in through the imports, imagine what happens to the Vidarbha farmer. Please understand that, I also want to show you, it also fits into a larger 40, 50 years of downgrading agriculture. And what Indian capitalism has done to agriculture, what global capitalism has done to agriculture. I need you will find it hard to believe, but you can check my words out by picking up your income tax ready reckoner and looking at the back. You know what? Every income tax reckoner, the last 2 pages are Indian prices of gold since 1952. When I look at these, you'll find a very interesting thing. In 1974, an Indian cotton farmer in Vidarbha could sell 1 quintal of cotton and buy 10 to 12 grams of gold. Sell 1 quintal of cotton, buy 10 to 12 grams of gold. In that family could organize its daughter's wedding, hold a big feast, and not run up debt. The big source of weddings are a very major avenue, a very major route to debt. 1974, you sold 1 quintal of cotton. You could buy 10 to 12 grams of gold and conduct your daughter's wedding. Very important for the village farmer. Today, the price of gold is 1,24,580 rupees for 10 grams. Today, that farmer would have to sell 20 to 22 quintals to buy 10 grams of gold. To buy 1 gram of gold today, that farmer would have to sell 2 quintals. Where he could, on 1 quintal, conduct his daughter's wedding. You see the complete collapse of the farmer's world, status, economy, finances, everything. And the rise of debt, particularly happening from 1991. Particularly happening with the so-called new economic policies, which are in collapse all over the world, but still held on to by the economists as something great. So what happens now as the imports begin? Anybody's guess. What will people do? Now there is another look at how the politics between the rival powers at the global stage is going to destroy your soybean farmer. Who, by the way, is the soybean farmer? The soybean farmer is yesterday's cotton farmer in Vidarbha, in Maharashtra. When cotton collapsed, millions of farmers shifted to soybean, cheaper input costs, etc., etc. Incidentally, just speaking of input costs, as late as 2003, cultivating 1 acre of cotton, 1 acre of unirrigated cotton in Vidarbha, I did the calculation myself along with my colleague Jaideep Hardikar. It was 2,500 to 4,000 rupees for an acre of irrigated land to cultivate 1 acre of cotton. Then comes BT, CT, GT, everything. By the way, in 2003, 1 acre of irrigated land, cultivation of cotton was 15,000 to 18,000 rupees. Yeah. In 10 years after that, within 10 years, and BT had grown, within 10 years, and with the rest of the economic policies, 1 acre of unirrigated land, was costing 15 to 20,000 rupees, and 1 acre of irrigated land cultivating cotton, 48 to 55,000 rupees. Now, the farmers' input costs have gone up 5, 6, 7 times. Has the farmer's income anywhere in the world gone up that much? So we completely finished them. Long before the Trump tariffs, we had already taken care of them, finished them. Now coming back to the present, many people, as cotton was devastated by global volatility, by the damned BT, which brought new bugs to Indian agriculture, which were not there earlier. And then what happens is, many of them shift to soybean. Now the devastation to the soybean farmer is a prediction I'm making to you. People shift to soybean because the risk is less than the cotton and the input cost is less. By the way, soybean, something 4,830 rupees. MSP is going around 4,100 rupees people are getting. But now, Trump declares war on China. He declares tariff war on China. He puts 145% tariffs on China, on the Chinese. Then, the Chinese respond in a restrained way. They announce 45% tariffs, but they also announce a ban on certain goods from the United States. Like they have announced a ban on import of beef from the United States, which means that Australian agriculture is having a boom. Australia has some 100% or 80% increase in its beef exports to China. But very importantly, China stopped buying soybean from the United States. Believe it or not, soybean is the single biggest export item of the United States to China. Every year, American farmers sell, China buys 13 to 16 billion dollars of soybean from the United States. Now, the politics of what Trump has done has had devastating consequences. The Chinese are now buying their soybean, and the nature of global capitalism itself is very peculiar. China actually, if it did not want to, does not have to buy soybean from anywhere else. It is the nation of origin of soybean. But the land which they get are not using for soybean, they are probably growing much more lucrative export products from it. Now China is buying that soybean from Argentina and Brazil, which are the very major producers. That has devastated the US farmer further because Trump has announced a $20 billion bailout, economic bailout for Argentina, whose soybean farmers are direct competitors of the United States soybean farmers. By the way, the Secretary of Treasury or whatever, of Commerce, Scott Bessent, he owns 100,000 acres of soybean farm in the United States. Now, the American farmer is asking, what the hell? You're subsidizing Argentina and soybean prices in Argentina who are selling to the Chinese. Now we can't sell to the Chinese because you went and put this damn tariff. The fact is that the United States now has $16 billion worth of soybean. Where do you think they're going to dump it? When I asked this question of the farmers in Vidarbha, they all said, "Hamare sir ke upar." They all, 100 hands went up and said this. They know where it's coming, right? They know where they're going to dump it. And why? Because the cowardice shown by your government in removing that 11% tariff, these are morons to think that if you give Trump that concession, he will say, okay, now let's deal. Though you have shown him your weakness. He is demanding more and more and more. And he'll get it. Yeah. The other thing that you should realize is that it's not only in India, Germany is doing it, others are doing it. Nations, and especially the Indian ruling elite, is always at the forefront of selling out the interest of its poor people. People are using the farmers, your poor people in Tamil Nadu who are in the tanneries, mainly Dalits, work in the tannery sector, hides and tanning sector. Our government is using these tariffs removal of these tariffs as a bargaining chip for big auto, big pharma, and H-1B visas. Yeah. So, you compromise on the interests of your poor to protect the interests of your upper middle classes and elite. Oldest thing in the world. Yeah. So that means, as that soybean farmer knows where they're going to dump that soybean. The Chinese now are not immediately there is no immediate prospect of the Chinese returning to buying soybean from USA, because otherwise they will then be branded as an unreliable trade partner, having ordered mass quantities from Argentina, Mexico, Brazil. So everybody today, the United States is known as the unreliable trading partner. If China goes back to buying from them, it will devastate those farmers in those countries. So they're not going to do that. They are trying to show that they are the responsible power. So they're not going to do that. Then, by the way, the soybean in India, the biggest growers are Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Rajasthan. Madhya Pradesh, that Ujjain area. In Maharashtra, Vidarbha, Marathwada. Rajasthan, I think the Dholpur and that part of it. Then I went and looked at what is happening. The devastation to seafood and shrimp, which will affect Tamil Nadu very badly. The worst affected state is Andhra Pradesh. 80% of Andhra's seafood exports are to the United States. Yeah. And after this, I'm going to show you that devastation in actual numbers which came out yesterday, day before in Economic Times. Though they don't talk about the devastation because they're so worried about, services and H-1B and stuff like that. But they give you the numbers. So, the shrimp, do you know that in the last month, 1 month, seafood tariffs 50%. In the last 1 month, just 30 days of September, Indian seafood exports have fallen 43.8%. And the venomized shrimp variety, 52%. Do you begin to see the kind of misery that is coming in the households of those fishermen, fisherfolk? And shrimp, there is both shrimp fishing and there is shrimp farming also. Especially in Andhra, there's a lot of shrimp farming. So that is taking a terrible, terrible hit. Now, some numbers for you. The numbers since the last 4 months and the numbers since the last 1 month when these tariffs have come, seafood tariffs, textile, apparel, garments. India's trade deficit was in January 2025, India's trade deficit was 23 billion US dollars was India's trade deficit. All the learned economists, when the tariffs were declared, said that the Reuters had an opinion poll of economists. They said this trade deficit by September will grow to, it will add to 3 billion, it will go to 25 point something billion. Actually, September 30th, it is 32.5 billion. 7.5 billion more than the learned economists had predicted. Okay? So the impact also has been underestimated even at the level of the number crunchers. Second, this is after the first full month under US tariffs. Imports have climbed in the last month 16.7%, and exports have only grown 6.7%. So the gap between imports and your trade deficit basically is roaring ahead. It's really going into a terrible place. So India's trade balance, even in August, was 26.49 billion. But between August and now, they've added $6 billion to the trade deficit on account of the tariffs. Then, good old Indians. What has doubled in our imports? What is the biggest thing that has doubled in our imports? Gold. Every Indian knows that gold is safer than the rupee, right? And they believe it's safer than the dollar also. All of this has happened. So gold imports have doubled from 5.14 billion in August to 9.6 billion by the end of September. And India's goods exports to the US fell 20% in September alone, 40% since June, when the 4 months period began. 40% since June. Indian seafood exports, as I told you, 43.8%. Now, is there something we can do about it? Yes, we can. You can shut up and beg and plead and say, Trump is my dear Donald, as he calls him very often. He keeps calling him Donald. My good friend Donald, you can just shut up and take whatever he gives you, which is what is happening. Or please know this, that other countries have fought back. China be fighting back. I'm not going to use that comparison. China is a much more powerful nation, Brazil has fought back. Okay, and I think we can compare ourselves with Brazil. Brazil has fought back. One, they have made active a law which was there on statute books earlier. They have activated a law called reciprocatory law, which allows them to impose retaliatory tariffs. Retaliatory tariffs. We don't use this word. What the Brazilians did, the first day that Trump declared his tariffs war on Brazil said, okay, we won't export to the United States, we'll find other markets. But what they did immediately, that week, they created a 6 billion export credit facility to cushion the shock for the dairying sector, the livestock sector, and the exports from these industries. They created a $6 billion. What would be the equivalent if we had to intervene like that in our farmers? We would end up giving that relief to Ambani, Adani, and it would not reach any farmer. And please know this. One thing I like two things about Trump, honestly. One, he has destroyed the mythology of global capitalism and IMF and World Bank. He has destroyed you how stupid, how suicidal the export-led growth strategy is. Yeah. Now we are talking about self-reliance. Now we are talking about growing enough food for ourselves. What have the IMF, World Bank, neoliberals told you for the last 30 years in India? The way to liberate India from poverty, export-led growth strategy. Anybody who does this is an idiot. And the United States consumer is now facing unprecedented prices. All their cheap goods, Walmart, Shawmart, everything comes from China. Everything comes from China. So now that they've got that problem. This whole idea of export-led growth strategy, when someone, the biggest player in the game says, I don't care for the rules, I don't care for the WTO, a WTO which the United States imposed on the world. When it has served its purpose, you throw it out. They're doing the same with the United Nations. Coming back to the agriculture thing, it's really one thing that puzzles me. I was discussing this with Nagraj. I am not understanding even the goods that are non-tariff and tariff exempt, phones, etc., so far, they are also collapsing in the exports. I really do not understand how this is happening. Maybe it's in anticipation of something. Maybe companies are interconnected. I only recently found out that we all know that iPhone manufactures iPhones in India. And I thought that, oh yeah, so there is an Indian partner. Apple has outsourced the manufacturing of iPhones in India to a company in Taiwan, which sets up an Indian front. What actually India gets out of all this is, I don't know, maybe some jobs in the sector. So when they come with tariffs on smartphones and when they come with tariffs on pharma, I think that's what the government is really worried about, and that is the terrible issue. There are several things you can do. One, you can do what Brazil has done, a export credit cushion. More importantly, and I think this is critical now, and it has been a demand of the farmers' movement in this country, I believe that every bale of cotton must be purchased under official procurement at the minimum support price. There is already a minimum support price, right? But this minimum support price, as I keep telling my friends on the farmers' front, it means nothing if there is no purchase. I give you a high price and then I don't buy. Procurement, MSP without procurement guarantee is meaningless. The CCI put out that price of 8,125. Cotton Corporation of India must now be authorized by the Government of India to buy every single bale of cotton at the minimum support price. So this has been a demand of the farmers that you increase procurement. We have to do it. We simply have to do this, and that would be the government's way. It's a better way, in my opinion, than even the Brazilian method. But you're also going to have to rethink your agriculture itself. Your huge diversion to cash crops in the last 3 decades. You're going to have to rethink a lot about your agriculture, the kind of agriculture you do, and what your crops are, what you grow. By the way, let me clarify. There's a very big misunderstanding of where I stand on agriculture. People get up and ask me, sir, as an expert on agriculture, I'm not an expert on agriculture. I am an expert, and I'm not ashamed to claim it. I'm an expert on people who live off agriculture, not the science of cultivation in agriculture. I know a lot about the people who live. That's what I've been talking to you about the last 20 minutes. Yeah. I understand the farmer, the agricultural laborer. That is my expertise as a journalist. It's a journalist's expertise. I am not going to advise anybody on, when to sow, when to harvest. This is not and I understand that farmers have compulsions to use particular kinds of fertilizer, which I don't approve of, and I will keep trying to persuade them about that. Now about the crisis. In 96-98, Utsa Patnaik was the first person to bring up the idea of what she called an agrarian depression. And then in around 2000 or so, and it made a very powerful impact on me because that book, The Republic of Hunger, and her follow-up work on that was simply without parallel in Indian academia and research. By 2000, I had started using the word in the media. I'm, I don't know whether it's a very dubious claim of fame, but I started in the media using the word agrarian crisis in the Hindu Sunday magazine. I was not yet full-time on the Hindu, but I started using this word. 10 years down that line, even a few years after that, see what started as a farming crisis. Many of our experts don't know the difference between damned farm crisis and agrarian crisis, including the great Columbia dons, Don Bhagwati and Panagaria, who wrote in their book on 50 years of Indian, on 70 years of Indian independence, that 53% of the farmers, 53% of Indian people are farmers. Okay? The census showed us that less than 8% were actually full-time farmers. Here's another lesson for all of you on how experts write books. They get some interns and they will make lectures and they will tell the interns to do something. And interns put the book together. How do I know? Because two of those interns rang me up for information on the suicide. Then they end up writing. They attacked Nagaraj and me in that book in one chapter as, what is this thing about farmer suicides? What is so great about farmer suicides? They actually use the language. Since 53% of Indians are farmers, 2 lakh suicides is a very low number, negligible. In fact, we should bring the rest of, if we bring the rest of Indian society to the level of farmers, I'm not joking, this is in their words. If we can get the rest of society to the levels of farmer suicides, it'll be a good thing. It'll be an achievement. The first look at the morality, 200,000 suicides is nothing. By the way, if that number is a basis for your position, it means that the Bhopal gas tragedy is meaningless. 20,000 people died, 0.0003% of the population. How does it matter? Yeah. So, second thing is that they were not at all giving you the correct number because they were taking 53% of the. They didn't understand that farmers are 8%, agricultural laborers 22%, all categories, and the rest are what we call agrarian, including the rest, is called agrarian society, the tens of millions of Indians who are not cultivators, but are entirely dependent on the agricultural economy. Your carpenter, your weaver, or your butcher, baker, all of them dependent on the agricultural economy. This group makes up maybe 53%, and you call it the agrarian society. So what was a farm crisis in 1996-97? The first thing, remember, of the farm crisis, first trigger, was the collapse of institutional credit to the farmer. No more giving loans to farmers. Between 91 and 2001, the number of agricultural households in debt almost doubled from 26 to 48%. Who were you giving the loans to? Ambani, Adani, corporate sector. If you or any of you care to get on to the Bank Employees Union's website, you will see that 75% of your NPAs are a handful of corporations, businesses. Millions of farmers, we keep talking about how much debt is not repaid by farmers. It's a fraction of the NPS compared to these guys, right? But we have branded the farmer there as a villain. That's a fact of life. Then, with the agrarian, you have by 2000 a full-blown agrarian crisis. From 2004 to 10, you are looking at a societal crisis because, what do I mean by that? You've seen 2004, 2008, and 9. How many elections were decided by the farmers' vote? And why was Chandrababu Naidu destroyed the way he was in the 2004? S.M. Krishna, all those who were darlings of the corporations, were destroyed in those elections. But I'm saying that today it's no longer a societal crisis. It's a civilizational crisis. I'll come to what you can do about it, but here, do you know that how rapidly farmers' populations are falling all over the world? Plummeting. When I was doing this farmers' suicide stories, it was Professor Nagraj and Rukmani who helped me with the numbers, Rukmani Raghavan, and showed me that you look at the Indian census, 1971, 1981, 1991, farmer populations are going up. Then it plummets. Between 1991 and 2001, India saw 7.2 million full-time farmers quit agriculture. Main cultivators. 2001 to 2011 census, the number of farmers quitting agriculture was 7.7 million. We're talking about roughly 15 million farmers quitting agriculture. By the way, did we create 15 million jobs anywhere? In our dreams, you did not create one job which a farmer could slot into in urban or other areas. They ended up in our houses as our servants, our drivers, our nanny, maid servant. This is what I had in our house. We had a skilled farmer from Talegaon, Pune, working for 8 years. Even now she comes and gives us, in the festival time, 5 kilos of brown rice. She couldn't sustain it, then she somehow got back to it because losing the land is not an option for her. So she's gone back to it. Now you're then we have lost 15 million farmers without creating a single job anywhere in 20 years. Do you know how much that is, my friend? It means you are losing farmers on an average rate of 2,040 per day. Every 24 hours, you have 2,040 fewer farmers in this country. Then, we haven't conducted a census for 15 years. And I think that the next census, the figures will be very confusing because of the reverse migration and then the reverse migration, because many people who went back have returned to the cities without options. But I don't know, when they are being interviewed for the census, what they will cite as place of residence, whether they will cite the village or the address in Mumbai. This is, by the way, this is not only in India. Europe is losing 353,000 farms every year on average. The original European Union of 12 members had far more farms than the European Union with 27 nation members. And the biggest farming member of European Union is Romania, third world country in Europe. 31.8% of all European farms are in Romania, where the average farm is less than 5 hectares. As against, thousands of hectares in the United States or elsewhere. Romania, Hungary, these are the people who still have farms. Unified Germany has fewer farmers than the two Germanys separately. Yeah? Europe is losing that at that rate. America is losing farmers at such a rate, 22,000 farms a year. They have only 1.8 million farms left because whatever happens in India, by the way, happened in the United States 40 years ago. Credit crisis, farm suicides, everything. We are locked into the US model on everything, Yeah. And look at the poor cotton producer in India. That poor woman or poor man, first, their lives are made miserable by American-led BT cotton. The GM cotton comes from America. First, you destroy our internal economy of the cotton farmer. Now you're going to dump cotton imports on India. US is okay. Japan is the nation, for other reasons, is the nation fastest decline of farmers. If the rate of decline of the last 10 years continues, there will be no farmers in Japan in 11 years. That's why now Japan is at the forefront of drone farming, robotics, AI in agriculture. Now, in the Japanese case, by the way, have you noticed that for the first time in their history, the Japanese are talking about opening up immigration? They are a nation of senior citizens now. They need immigration. They know it's going to create trouble at home, but they're talking about it. And they're even slowly reaching out to India. But in a situation like Japan, you need that robotics, drone farming, and AI. In a situation like India, it will cause further huge layoffs and dismissals in Indian agriculture. Your unemployment problem will multiply massively. So how have we been dealing with it? Okay, let me put it this way. The crisis is this, civilizational. From 1,000 to 2,000 years, what has been the bedrock of every civilization? The small farmer. The family farm. What you have in Tamil Nadu, anywhere in the country, is a family farm. Yeah? I'm trying to tell you that the biggest class struggle in the world today is between the family farm and the corporate farm. This is the biggest battle in the world stage today. Between family farming and corporate farming. When I say EU is losing 3.53 lakh farms every year, who is taking its place? Who's taking that place? Corporations. Who has taken the place in Germany of the millions of farmers that once Germans were? Corporations. United States, 99% corporatized agriculture. Yeah. You know what? An astonishing thing about and heartening thing about the great farmer struggle at the gates of Delhi. It is the first time in Indian history that farmers as a class with that consciousness of class have confronted the corporate world. Every second slogan in the camps at Delhi was anti-Ambani, anti-Adani. They were very clear who their enemies were. But here's the thing. It is the first time the Indian peasantry is confronting the corporate world since it confronted the East India Company. That is the first time. Okay, there is that consciousness that has come that our enemy is the corporate world. Right? And I'm trying to tell you, at the global stage, the number one enemy of all people is corporate power. I don't think anyone sitting in this audience has the doubt of that. It is corporate power. Imperialism is exercised via corporate power. All of this. So, look, if you look at the agricultural trade, coffee, 4 companies control the entire trade in agriculture, in coffee. No Western nation grows coffee. We grow coffee. Okay, and a 1991 figure, and there is no improvement on that. There is no update on that, but the figure is less. Martin Core showed us, Malaysia, he showed us that in the global value of coffee, the developing nations who are the producers get 9% of the total value. 91% is made by the Western nations. Italy, US, they make billions on coffee prices. Right? You look at commodity after commodity, the producers are in the third world, the profiteers are in the first world. I'm saying wherever you look, you are confronting the corporate world. Right? Where are all the laws being made for in this country? Who made the farm laws? Do you think that they were written in parliament? Nowhere. They were never submitted to an expert committee. They were never submitted to the standing committee on agriculture. They were written in the boardrooms of Ambani, Adani, Birla, all the others who were into agribusiness. Now, by the way, you can see the shifts in the media. We long ago stopped covering, for the last 30 years, first 30 years, covering agriculture meant covering the agriculture ministry. In the last 10 years, it has meant covering agribusiness. Just open your Economic Times, even Business Line, anybody. Who are we covering? How many farmers are speaking in your agriculture columns? Right? So you're looking at that marginalization of that class at every level of society. Yeah. But the wonderful thing about that struggle, and I'm saying it gives you hope. One, the coming of that consciousness, which began before that struggle because of the great march from Nashik to Mumbai organized by the All India Kisan Sabha. It was the first time we understood, but we also understood another thing. Don't expect the farmers to do it on their own. They fought that battle for us because those laws took away your fundamental right to legal remedy. It barred the jurisdiction of the civil courts. It created legal system of appellate tribunals at the district level. Tehsildar, deputy collector, these guys are going to sit and give a decision against Ambani, Adani. This morning, read your newspaper or yesterday's newspaper. The High Court of Chhattisgarh has dismissed the Adivasi plea against the handing over of 79,000 acres of forest to one Mr. Adani. Now, the Adivasis of Chhattisgarh were there 3,000 years in that forest before there was a Chhattisgarh High Court, before there was an Adani. Before there was an Adani. At every state, and by another thing, worldwide, land loss of farmers is huge. 79,000 acres in two districts, in one district, 79,000 acres, the Hasdeo forest. Yesterday, the Chhattisgarh High Court confirmed that the government can take it back from the Adivasis. Now, when you are in this kind of situation, and I'm saying that I find, and I just recently addressed the Manipal mental health professionals, alumni of Manipal Medical College, the Kasturba Gandhi Medical College, and they were all completely puzzled by when they are meeting farmers, etc. They actually say there's almost like a sense of doom, a sense of extinction. And know this: how many farmers are telling their children, "Don't be farmers. Go, educate yourself, be something else." Right? There is that huge sense of impending disaster. What is the income of a farmer? You see the surveys. Now, my thing is that in the fights that took place, in the battles that took place, and the processes that are going on, I'll finally put this point to you that so many the young people, there are quite a few young people in this audience. That's very pleasing. Please know this. It is very possible unless we reverse it. It is very possible that your grandchildren and great grandchildren can live in a world without farmers. I don't know about you. I find that scary. I find that truly scary, a world without farmers. Japan will be one in 11 years. Yeah. Oh, yeah, there will be farmers. So don't worry. They're already coming up in Kerala and Coorg and Kannur. You know what they will be? They will be affiliated not to the Kisan Sabha but to the tourism department. Farmer homestays. Tourism homestays. Do you know that France, Italy have hundreds of homestays? The farmer does no farming really. And in France, when you go and do in a French homestay, farmer's homestay, they will allow you to do 2 days of labor in a vineyard. Yeah, so you can go back saying, I lived 1 week as a farmer or whatever. So that kind of future is guaranteed everywhere. Kerala, Wayanad has, several farmer homestays. I've stayed in one of them. But you are absolutely blanking out a class, a historic class that for 2000 years, that small farmer has been the foundation of many 100 civilizations. If you remove that, if that's absent, then I say it is definitely a civilizational issue. And the US, it'll be 37 years, or 37, 38 years at that rate. And I'm actually giving you a very underestimated rate because I'm collating 30 years or 40 years, whereas the rate of decline has been speeding up in the last few years. Okay? We don't know what has happened in that 2011 to this period. Is there a way? I think that a nation makes a choice. One wonderful thing is one horrible thing, all over the West and all over much of the world, especially in the West, farmers are moving rapidly to the far right. Even France, historically a left-wing farming, you're seeing, by the way, farm has, of the European EU, Western EU members, France has the largest number of non-traditional farmer owners, meaning corporations, businesses, etc. German farmers are now on the far right. It is something that in India, the farmers have been never on the right or the far right, never. They've been left of center to center. Please do not delude yourself that cannot change. Don't do that. Trump got whatever farmers' votes are there in the US, they went with Trump. Now he's finishing them. But they went with Trump. They voted for Trump. The conservative farm belt, the Iowa, the Minnesota, they voted for Trump. Right? We are all seeing in the last 2 decades how people can be persuaded to vote against their own interests. Right? Now, the counter to this, one thing we realized after the Nashik March, one of the most beautiful moments in my life was when 40,000 Adivasis, most of them and they had walked for 6 days. They were supposed to take a night of rest and come to Azad Maidan in the morning. So that from 6 a.m. they'd start marching and they would hit the city at 8, 10 a.m. and everyone driving a car would know that they were there. Do you know what those farmers did? Their social responsibility, their social consciousness. Instead of marching the next morning, they said, we are going to march tonight and we are going to march silently without slogans. Without slogans. When that I asked the leader, one lady, Rukma Bai, a CPM cadre and Kisan Sabha member, why did you do this? They heard after they arrived that the next morning lakhs of children in Mumbai would be writing the board exams. And they said, we didn't want to disturb the children. So we marched. We marched in silence, and we marched that same night so that we didn't disrupt the traffic. What happens if the children miss the exam hall? So I said, I asked Rukma Bai, how did you decide on this? She said, we also have children. They also write exams. Why should we destroy the exams of these children? Would we want it for our own children? Now, when they came to Azad Maidan, something happened which I have not seen since the late 80s in Mumbai. Since the 80s, textile strike I had not seen. Now, the people of Mumbai realized what the farmers had done for them. And a few thousand showed up. Bankers, businessmen. One fellow came in his BMW and distributed 3,000 sachets of water. Yeah. In a BMW, he came there and distributed 3,000. He came with his servants and they distributed sachets. One Muslim businessman from Crawford Market, who refused to give us his name, came and distributed 1,000 pairs of chappals. I asked him, how come? He said, I saw them on TV. Their feet were bleeding. I couldn't stop crying. And then 13 doctors from the JJ hospital abandoned post and came to treat these farmers. That day, I saw young law students and interns at the High Court is next door to Azad Maidan. They came and said, sir, you tell us, we'll file a PIL today. We don't know what the issue is, but you tell us. We'll file the PIL if you instruct us. Then the CPI, CPIM, bank employees, BOC, bank officers, or the bank trade unions came there and distributed food, set up stalls. My friends and I were watching. We saw students for farmers, their parents coming there to help the farmers. We saw teachers for farmers. We saw lawyers for farmers. We saw bankers for farmers. That day, we decided that we have to have a huge spread of unity across classes. And that day, we were witnessing a nation for farmers. Okay? People of all kinds of people came out. There is some sense in the Indian public still of the rural, not so much in Mumbai and not so much in Delhi, right? But you look at people living in the, now let's take this audience. Every one of you in this audience, 2 generations ago, you were a villager. Some of you in this generation were also villagers. We can campaign on that sensibility, appeal to them instead of, and I find that it works. I found that the most responsive in the hundreds of speeches I've made, including government servants and elsewhere, you know who I found was the most responsive people? I taught at the army colleges and defense academies. And they were really furious about the agrarian crisis because, my dears, the Indian Jawan, 200 years ago and today, the Indian Jawan is essentially a Kisan in uniform. The 1857 uprising was not a mutiny, it was the giant agrarian uprising after the land appropriation of Awadh by the British new tenancy laws and land ownership laws. So you really have a history reconstruction in the making, and we were everywhere else in the world, farmers' battles have been lost in this country. The Kisan Andolan, your media never told you this, but I challenge them to contradict me. The largest peaceful constitutional democratic struggle for justice in the world in 30 years. Before that, the most famous struggle for justice in the world was Occupy Wall Street, where 7,000, 8,000, mostly young techies, occupied Zuccotti Park, a private park in New York. Yeah. And the owner of the park, it's a private park, was sympathetic to the protesters. He did not ask them to leave, he did not evict them. But after 9 weeks, the the mayor of New York told the New York Police Department, throw the scumbags out. And the NYPD cleared that place in less than 24 hours. Your farmers lasted 54 weeks, where Occupy Wall Street lasted 9 weeks. Okay? Your farmers lasted 54 weeks. You know who all they fought? They fought Delhi police, Punjab police, Haryana police, CRPF, CISF, other paramilitary bodies. 720 farmers died in the camps. How many of you know that? 720 farmers died in the camps. It's now a huge issue in Punjab about compensating them. Do you know what the government of India did? It unleashed greater warfare and greater action, physical action against them than you saw on the LAC with China. Yeah? And yet your farmers did not succumb. They did not succumb. Yeah? They fought. And they got him to withdraw the laws. All those laws are now being reintroduced through the back door. But the point of the story is you can fight this situation. This one country can fight this situation. We formed Nation for Farmers, which is a non-farmers body of intellectuals, academics, employees, journalists. You can take the initiative. I tell my Kisan Sabha colleagues in Chennai, you can form a Tamil Nadu chapter of Nation for Farmers, where everybody is turning out to defend the farming traditions, agriculture of this country. That's one possibility. Also in our own lifestyles. Do you know, I was on a campus a few days ago where people were asking me, how can we support the farmers? And I tell you, this applies to every one of you. Do you know that there is a principle adopted by many progressive communities in the world? The food we buy, the food we consume, must have been produced within a 100-mile radius. You get fresh food, you can negotiate with farmers' cooperatives. In many countries, they form cooperatives of farmers. Right? Now, LIC has, 1,000 canteens across the country. If we take that decision, you are giving a huge boost to the local farming economy. Yeah? And if you're doing that, the farmer has stability. He knows what to grow. Your housing society, if 50 people get together and buy, he knows I've got to give 800 kilograms of tomatoes here. I've got to do so many kilograms of rice here. They know what to grow. Their volatility gets less. There are 1,000 things. We don't have the time to do it today. And I'm telling you that things can be better. However, things are going to get a lot worse before they get any better. And if they get better, depends on how we understand that the very foundations of civilization are threatened, that the farmer is... Do we want a world without farmers? We can have a world with other kinds of farmers. We can have that kind of a world. But do we want a world with no farmers? How we all gather around to build alliances across... The Delhi succeeded because the Delhi struggle succeeded. Farmers, landless farmers, agricultural laborers, the biggest agricultural laborers unions of the country participated in that struggle, especially the biggest unions of Punjab. They have serious contradictions with the farmers, but they knew they're gone, we are also gone. Right? So, my friends, it's there. It's in your hands. It's in our decisions. It's in our actions from here on. What kind of agriculture we want? What kind of civilization we want? Thank you.
Thank you, comrade. Imagining a country without farming